Hey guys, Tulip here, and this is the beginning of a series I'm hoping to get out. It's called Spartlight, where in every episode I will talk about a particular artist and their masterpieces and art styles and so on. So for this episode, I will rant about one of my personal favorites, Leonardo Da Vinci. But before we talk about this absolute prodigy, we need to talk about the Renaissance. So the Renaissance is generally described as taking place from the 14th century to the 17th century following the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages are fondly nicknamed the Dark Ages, and they had wars, famines, pandemics such as the Black Death. Therefore, the Renaissance is credited with bridging the gap between the Middle Ages and modern day civilization. So during this time period, classical philosophy, literature, and art flourished like crazy. This era was a fervent period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth. We can thank this time period for giving us many of our great philosophers, explorers, artists, scientists, engineers, statesmen, and so many more. Some of these remarkable people are explorers like Ferdinand Magellan, Christopher Columbus, Amerigo Vespucci, and Marco Polo. Intellectuals like John Milton, who was an English poet and historian, William Shakespeare, poet, very famous playwright, celebrated for his sonnets and plays, Dante, an Italian philosopher, poet, writer, and political thinker who wrote the Divine Comedy. René Descartes, French philosopher and mathematician regarded as the father of modern philosophy. Galileo, Italian astronomer, physicist, and engineer who described the moons of Jupiter and rings of Saturn. Nicholas Copernicus, mathematician and astronomer who made the first modern scientific argument for the concept of a heliocentric solar system. And artists like Michelangelo, who was an Italian sculptor, painter, and architect. Leonardo Da Vinci, the Italian painter, architect, and inventor, responsible for painting the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. Gutenberg invented the printing press during this time. Renaissance art was characterized by realism and naturalism. Artists tried to depict people and objects in a true-to-life way. They used perspective, shadows, and light to add depth to their work. Elements include linear perspective, landscapes, light, anatomy, realism, figure composition. Some of the most famous artistic works of the time include the Mona Lisa by Da Vinci, the Last Supper by Da Vinci, the Statue of David by Michelangelo, the Birth of Venus, Botticelli, and the Creation of Adam by Michelangelo. Leonardo da Vinci. His paintings are notable for their blended color and shading in the technique known as sfumato. His 19 notebooks include studies of the human circulatory system and plans for a type of aircraft and a submarine. The name Da Vinci is an indicator of birthplace, not a family name. The person is properly referred to by the given name, Leonardo. He was born April 15, 1452, near Vinci in the Republic of Florence in present-day Italy. Died on May 2, 1519 in Clou, France. He was an Italian painter, draftsman, sculptor, architect, and engineer. He was always hungry for knowledge. Saper Vadir, knowing how to see, was the main theme of many of his studies. He studied many subjects such as architecture, mechanics, painting, cosmology, anatomy, and so on. During different stages in his life, he had worked as a painter, a sculptor, architect, engineer, and so much more. He also traveled a lot to Milan, Rome, France, except when he was 15, he was an apprentice to a famous artist, Andrea del Verrocchio, who taught him painting and sculpture, and he was mere doors down from another great artist, Antonio Pollaiuolo. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Leonardo da Vinci wrote from right to left in mirrored writing, so his work was only legible when held up to a mirror. Leonardo da Vinci designed a flying machine over 400 years before the Wright brothers achieved their first sustained flight. During his astonishing lifetime, he managed to acquire quite the group of devoted students.
Some of them are, I will put the names on the screen because I do not want to butcher any of these beautiful names.
His famous work would include The Last Supper, The Mona Lisa, St. Jerome, Treatise on Painting, Portrait of Ginevra di Benci, Virgin and Child with St. Anne, Leda, The Brindwa Madonna, The Virgin of the Rocks, Battle of Anghiari, The Baptism of Christ, Adoration of the Magi, Mary Magdalene, Salvator Mundi, Bacchus, Madonna of the Yawnwinder, a chalk painting of a man, and it's widely accepted as a self-portrait, the Vitruvian Man, the Annunciation, Lady with an Ermine. Now, the exact number of paintings created by him is debatable, as only a few of them have survived. Many of them are unfinished and done in collaboration with other artists of the time. There is also some confusion as to which copy of the artwork was done by Leonardo, as many artists, it seems, have repeated the same work over and over. At the end of 1516, he left Italy forever. Together with Medici, his most devoted pupil, Leonardo spent the last 3 years of his life in the small residence of Tulip near the king's summer palace at Amboise, France. Leonardo died at Clou and was buried in the palace church of Saint Florentine. The church was destroyed during the French Revolution and completely torn down at the beginning of the 19th century. His grave can no longer be located, but his artistic and scientific estate was inherited by Medici. According to him, the noblest pleasure is the joy of understanding. But alas, we may never understand this unparalleled genius.